Hello, gamers. This is Simply Travis of the Lamer Gamers, along with Ryan, also known as COV or Citizen of Verona, and our producer Karkashan of Game Witness here to discuss our personal top 5 games of 2018. You can find us at the Game Witness Discord, Karkashan's on YouTube, and Lamer Gamers Cast on Twitter. So I have Ryan here today and get him to kind of introduce himself. Ryan, how long have you been a gamer, and how did you get involved with Game Witness?
I've been playing video games since Super Mario World. This is the first game I ever remember playing.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, Game Witness, I was a part of Nintendo Enthusiasts, like a lot of people in that community seem to be.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. And I think Jug or Matt, one of them invited me to their Discord server because the forums have been a bit slow lately, in other words. So I've just been on their Discord. I'm not the most adamant user of it, but I do pop in from time to time, and
Gotcha.
mostly at E3 and like the Game Awards and big events like that.
Yeah, that's whenever it's the most fun. Unfortunately, forums have just kind of slowed down everywhere lately, it seems. It kind of sucks.
I posted a thread earlier today about this. Like, let's just talk about 2018. But the last time I checked, a few hours later, like no one wrote in it. So,
well, I'll have to go check and write something later. So we're going to be talking about the top 5 games that we played in 2018, not necessarily top 5 releases. And we'll kind of go from there. So what was your, your number 5 game this year?
Basically, number 5 for me is called The Haunted Island, a frog detective game.
That just sounds fun.
I've only heard of it from one review on Destructoid, and that's why I picked it up, because it took me 44 minutes to beat. There's no combat. The puzzles are your most basic point-and-click type of adventure, where character A wants item B, sometimes from character C, but it's all very simple. Why it's number 5 is because, 1, I'm a hipster, and 2, it's one of the most funniest games I've ever played. The writing is so well written. It's dry. Like, it's not that meta, oh, let's laugh at video games type thing. It's well written. Basically, you're a frog detective. You start the game, your phone rings, your boss asks you to take up a job concerning a haunted island. The king of the island can't sleep at night because it's infested by ghosts. So he hires a ghost scientist team to get rid of it. And he phones you up and he asks you to do it. And he's like, normally we would hold these jobs for our better detective Lobster Cop. But it's like, he's busy, so we have to phone you. And your character is saying, yeah, I know, Lobster Cop's abilities far exceed my own. So you get there, you talk to the scientist, you talk to the king, and you just piece together what happened. There's one scientist there who's scared because he thought they were being hired for a toast scientist and not a ghost one. There's a sheep who is freaked out by the fact that you're wearing a shirt made of sheep wool, and then you talk about how weird it would be if you wore a shirt from frog slime. Like, I'm not doing it justice, but it's just written very well.
Sounds fun, actually.
Yeah, it's a very funny game that had a smile on my face the whole time, essentially.
What is the art style like? Is it like a 8-bit style? Is it hand drawn? Is it?
You play from a first-person perspective. It's very low poly, and the animation is janky, but it's, again, I think it's on purpose jank.
Okay.
It's like a very colorful 90s game almost.
Okay. Whenever I think of point and click, I always think of 2D games. And so that's kind of what I was thinking in my head when you were explaining it. But so you actually get to walk around in 3D and explore all the stuff in the game?
Yeah, you get off your boat, you're on the beach, and there's a few scientists on the beach. There's a few scientists in the little forest area where the king's bed is. It's a very small island. Like I said, it took me 44 minutes to talk to everyone and get all the items. So again, you're not playing for like a challenging puzzle game. You're not playing for like open world sandbox. You're just there to laugh and just be told a funny story, which I think it succeeded beyond measure in that regard. And that's why it's number 5 for me, just because it's so fresh. And like I said, I can't remember the last time a game made me laugh that much.
What system are you playing it on? Is this a PC game or is it on a console?
I played it on Steam.
Okay.
It's like $5. But when I Googled it earlier for the proper name, its Switch version came up in
Really?
the autofill on Google. So I'm just looking it up now to see if it's coming to anything else.
Yeah, because I'm going to have to try this out if it's actually top 5 of the year for you.
Well, again, I only played like 6 games this year, so I mean, you know.
Oh man, I've played way too many. So my top 5 right now is actually a little bit larger scale, but it's an expansion, so it's a surprisingly large scale for an expansion. It's Torna, the Torna expansion for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Did you happen to play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the Switch?
Sadly, I don't have a Switch. I do love Xenoblade Chronicles 1, and I loved X until the ending kind of made me a bit mad.
Yeah, same here.
So when I do get a Switch, like Xenoblade 2 is number 1 or number 2 for me to get.
So I don't need to talk in spoilers is what you're telling me.
I'm sure with a game that big, like it doesn't matter too much, as long as you don't ruin the ending.
Well, don't go to the Hall of Fame room in GW and look at the Xenoblade room, because it is a spoilers room. But basically, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna is a prequel. So in XC2, you are going around and doing this big story, and they allude to the past because a lot of the characters in the game actually were in the past. Like, I think it's 500 years in the past whenever Torna happened. And you learn about this, legendary fighter and all this other stuff, and you actually get to play as them. The battle modes in it, or the way that battle works in the game, is very good. Whereas in the base game, you generally get 3 blades that power you up as you're fighting. Whereas in this game, you hop back and forth between you and your solo blade. So it's a little bit different to where your blades are actually jumping in and you're working with them in tandem. And it has a nice pace difference to it. I still actually need to finish the expansion. I got distracted by other things. I think life happened somewhere in there. And then I got distracted by like other games. But in general, though, it's definitely really well crafted. It's better than most expansions out there because it actually is kind of expansive. It's nice. So don't want to give away too much and go into it, but it's a good time. And what Karkashan's saying is Torna is one of the best expansions that she's played in a long, long while. And I'd have to agree with that. The number 1 game I'm going to talk about today is right up there with it as far as expansions goes, to me personally. But, I mean, you can get a good 20, 30, 40 hours out of the expansion for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is unusually good.
Okay, because I don't know much about it, because I'm the type of person I try to go into games blind.
Right.
So I just heard there was an expansion. I just assumed it was sort of like the Witcher 3 expansion, where it's just opening up another part of the world. I didn't know it was a prequel like that with new characters. So that makes me even more excited to try the games out.
Oh yeah, it is definitely worth it, and it gives you a different perspective than what you would expect on some of the characters too.
Yeah.
And one thing is the blades in the game, which, I mean, in a way, almost feel like Pokemon in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where you collect blades in the main game. This one, you're not really collecting them, but the same blades from the base game are the ones you're playing with 500 years in the past, but there's a little bit of a twist to it. Because blades are almost like these eternal things in this game. But don't want to spoil that for you too much. Did you happen to find when that game's releasing on Switch, the one you were talking about beforehand?
I just Googled it, and I couldn't find anything. So I don't know if that was just Google trolling. Okay. But, I mean, if I do ever find something about it, like, I will post it. Because I do think it's a pretty underrated comedy game. So.
Okay. So what is your number 4?
Number 4 is another little indie game called Minute.
Okay.
This one is on Switch, I believe. And it's basically Link's Awakening played 60 seconds at a time.
Really?
Basically, you start off, you leave your house, you find a sword on the beach, but it's a cursed sword. So every 60 seconds you die, and then you respawn at your house. On paper, it sounds like the worst idea for a game ever made, but the puzzles and the world and everything is based around it. So the first thing you do is like talk to an old man whose text scrolls very slowly. Mm-hmm. So like if you find him with 20 seconds left, you're going to die in the middle of his speech. So you have to get there quick enough for him to say everything that he needs to say.
Is it frustrating? That sounds frustrating to me.
No, it's not actually, because again, they designed it perfectly that it's designed for this. There are other spawn points in the world too. So like in the desert, there's a camper, and then that'll be your new spawn point until you find a hotel or go back to your house sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It's not like playing Zelda with a 60-second time limit. It's just a top-down adventure game with a sword, hence why I said Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
But there's another quest where a bartender will say, "Can you kill me 5 crabs on the beach?" And then they're like one screen north and one screen south. So again, they're very quick puzzles. And sometimes you'll have to find an item to help you walk faster or cut down trees or something. But again, it's all very designed with this limitation in mind. So it's not frustrating at all. So I was a bit hesitant to play it because I was like, again, that seems really weird. But it's not the biggest world, so it doesn't take much time, obviously, to get from point A to point B. And combat isn't the focus of it. It really is just more like the puzzle solving. Another example is the hotel. The owner of the hotel wants customers, and every time you respawn in the hotel, he'll say, "Oh, I remember there was a guy who used to play hide and seek all the time." So then you go like one screen north, 2 screens east, and then there will be a guy behind a tree. So you just cut down those 5 trees, and then he'll say, "Oh, I'm going to go to the hotel now." And then there's also a button for you to just die if you don't have enough time. So you can just die, immediately respawn at the hotel. And then he'll say, "Oh, I remember a customer who did such and such." And then you'll find him like 2 screens north and 1 west or something like that. So it's one of those games it's a hard sell for me to explain it, but it just works.
So do the characters, like whenever you die and respawn, do the characters know that you just died, or does it starts all over like it's a completely started over a minute ago?
No, I think everything stays. So like every time you die and go to the hotel, everyone that you've rescued or brought to the hotel is still there.
Gotcha.
And like there's one little mini thing where a guy wants to listen to music on a jukebox. So you just hit the jukebox with your sword until the right song plays, and then he'll give you a reward, and then like you never have to talk to him again. But he'll always say like, "Thanks for putting that on." So yeah, it's like your progress remains.
Okay.
So that's basically it. And like if you're about to solve a puzzle and you die, then like, oh, okay, I know what to do, so I don't have to waste any time. So you can go there in like 5 seconds or 10 seconds, solve the puzzle in 20 seconds, get your reward in 5 seconds. And then if you want to go somewhere else, or just die and respawn and then go somewhere else. Very quick game. Like, took me shy of 2 hours to beat, but I didn't collect everything. So if you want to get all the coins for like 100% completion and everything, it'll probably run you like 3 or 4 hours, depending on how like your problem solving and all that.
What's the price of this game on Steam? Is it like dirt cheap, or is it?
It's $10.
Okay.
So again, you're not breaking bank on it, and
right.
I think it's worth it because it's also pretty sharp in its writing too, and it's a quirky game. But it also goes on sale like every time there's a big winter sale or summer sale, so it's one of those games.
Okay. Well, my next game, I guess my number 4 is the game that you pretty much die every minute if you don't know what you're doing, is Diablo 3 on the Switch. So, actually, I put way too many hours into this game already. I'm probably, I think 130 hours into it now. I brought it over to a friend's house last night and got the new, they made these little loot goblin amiibos, which just adds to my amiibola disease. But it's such a good game. It's so well done. For the Switch version, it is throwing all sorts of characters on the screen and really doing more than what you would expect with a Switch game, but that seems to be what the Switch is all about lately whenever it comes to third-party releases. It is hitting above the belt, unless you're the company that does Ark Survival. That game is terrible, apparently. But we've had a lot of people at Game Witness that have really jumped into Diablo and gotten a lot of good time out of it. So I would say that one, for a combination of how accessible it is with all the DLC that comes with it. It looks pretty good, and oh my gosh, playing Diablo Portable it just feels wrong. Like, yesterday we had 3 people playing, and I played Portable for hours. Along with like a little battery pack to keep it going, because that game will eat your battery. But it just works. You hop into the game, hop out. You can do local only. You could go online. There's seasons with it. So we were getting them all their gear. Because did you ever play Diablo 3 on PC or anything else?
I've never. My PC isn't best in terms of hardware, so I mostly have to stay with indies or 90s, early 2000s.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I mean, the game really is just excellent as far as getting everybody together and running around, hit stuff, make it explode. It's a bit gory, but it's definitely been one of my top games, and probably what I've played the second most so far. I think Karkashan started a character too. I'm trying to remember what she played as. Was it? Oh, as a monk. So yeah, she got to go around and hit everything with her fist and break stuff. I played mostly as a witch doctor, and I've made a build where all my minions go around and just smack things around for me, rather than going with a more interactive, I guess, approach where you hit the button, you hit a thing. I'm treating it more like it's a real-time strategy game almost, where I have to move and try to move the bad guys into places so my minions do the work for me. So there's a lot of actually good, for an adventure RPG, there's actually a lot of play style differences depending on the characters that you choose. So what are you thinking? What was your number 3?
It was a hard choice for my top 3, so I just had to get really kind of nitpicky, kind of personal taste, whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think number 3 is Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Okay. Is that related to Tomb Raider franchise? Is that related to the Tomb Raider franchise? Okay.
Yeah, they it's weird naming conventions lately. 2013's Tomb Raider was just Tomb Raider, and then the sequel was Rise of the Tomb Raider, and now it's Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Gotcha.
But, so this is the third one in the reboot trilogy. Tomb Raider, like I admit, is kind of my comfort zone. So, I might tend to overlook some issues from time to time.
I haven't played Tomb Raider since a long time, since she was very jagged, I guess.
Yeah, I love those games, despite all the jankiness to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Shadow may be the best one of this new reboot trilogy, because like Tomb Raider 2013 had really basic, simple action puzzle games. Like the old one were about exploring these huge labyrinth-like levels, finding keys and doing this and that, and occasionally shoot a T-Rex in the face or something like that.
That's always a good way to start your day.
But Tomb Raider 2013 was basically Uncharted with a bit more freedom in the level design and open worldness, and then Rise brought some puzzles into it and had really good optional puzzles. But I think Shadow is the best in this regard, because the main story has some pretty good puzzles in tombs, and the optional side tombs are really great. They finally got a new writer from 2013 in Rise, so I think the writing was better. The jungle area was well designed, because by the end of Rise of the Tomb Raider, I was really sick of snowy mountains. But I think this one had a better balance. There's a bit of jungle area, there's some cliff sides, there's lots of caves and tombs, of course. Yeah, like I said, a lot of it comes down to I just love this franchise. So again, I might be a bit biased here, but I finished it, and then I immediately started a new game on a harder difficulty, and I played through it again. And there's not too many games where I can play and beat, and then the next day start up a new save file again. So in that regard, like, it has replay value. There's a lot of collectibles if you're into that sort of thing. But like the main game itself is still like a worthwhile time.
So what are you playing this on?
This was on PS4.
Okay. So, yeah, because I was wondering, you were talking about your PC earlier, but I didn't realize you had... Do you have a PS4 and do you have an Xbox?
I have an original Xbox, but I don't have an Xbox One. So for modern stuff, it's PS4 and a pretty...
So you have an Xbox One, but not an Xbox One, is what you're saying. I got it.
Yeah, I have a 2002 Xbox, I think. So.
Yeah, those things are like heavy. I remember those back in the day. You could probably use them as like a step stool too.
Yeah, I think I got
just
mine.
Thinking utilitarian purposes.
I got mine somewhere in my closet, and I'm kind of afraid that shelf is just going to bend one day.
Karkashan saying that good old Duke controller.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I never used one. I used a remodeled controller, so I never experienced good old Duke.
It wasn't really my favorite controller, to be honest. It felt very rounded to me, and I don't know why. I just didn't like it. Maybe because
I was saying I had a Dreamcast, or have a Dreamcast, and one of the controllers I have is those longer, more rounder, bulkier ones. So I feel like I would be at home using a Duke.
That makes sense. So, I grew up like with the original NES and Super Nintendo and all that stuff. And the NES controllers, the really old school ones, were like sharp and basically just angled, and you could use them as nunchucks and hit your little siblings with them if y'all got into a fight. But that's what I was used to, I guess. It was so, or I was used to Nintendo 64, where it was the buttons just felt different to me. Karkashan saying you could grate cheese using those NES controllers. You probably could. If you get it at just the right angle. Speaking of Nintendo controllers, a game, my number 3, actually, people have a very much a preference for a controller, is Smash Brothers Ultimate. I know everybody still uses like the GameCube controller and buys the adapters. I don't go that far into Smash Brothers Ultimate. I actually have a really weird button scheme that throws people off that I use, because for some reason in my head, I want the jump button to always be B. So I'm a little weird whenever it comes to that game, but if you haven't played Smash Brothers Ultimate, I mean, it is excellent. It's a ton of characters. The graphics look great. I'm sure everybody has read and heard about Smash Brothers enough, but one aspect that I really enjoy about the game is you have to earn all your characters. It starts you out with like the original 8, and you actually have to earn all these other like 60 or 50 something other characters. I don't know the exact number. But I remember getting a text from my friend Rowdy, which I do the Lamer Gamers podcast with, and he was complete opposite. Whereas I enjoy starting with a small number because I can kind of get used to some of the characters and play with them rather than being like, whenever I see that big massive screen of 72 characters, I get a little distracted by everybody. I never try them out. He sent me a large cursing text message about how much he hated that. So it was nice. But I actually enjoy that. And the single player mode is ridiculous. It's a World of Light where Kirby, which is my favorite character in the game, is the only one that survives, because Kirby is awesome. And everybody should know that. And you basically start as Kirby, and you have to go save the souls of all the characters in the game to unlock them for that mode. And there's lots of little special fights. You attach spirits to change how you fight and things like that. Like if you get a spirit that is metallic, it might turn your character into a metallic character at the beginning of the match and things like that. And also, Carcassonne saying if you unlock them in adventure mode, you also unlock them in the main game. So there's like 2 different levels of unlocking to do. And it's pretty good either way. I will say, though, like I'm really bad about playing World of Light only with Kirby right now. Like I unlocked all these other characters to play in World of Light, and I'm not using them at all. And just generally, I mean, online works well. We've been doing battle arenas and putting the Discord link as the title of the battle arena. And we've had lots of people coming over to Game Witness just to play and getting some really good matches in there and getting the voice chat going, which you can technically do voice chat on the phone through the Nintendo app. But, I mean, Discord's the way to go for generally anything. But, yeah, it's a good game. I guess that's the way I'm going to sum it up. Best Smash ever, I guess you'd say.
My friend has it, and there's a few things I'm not used to.
What's that?
I played it at a friend's house, and I'm not used to like some moves sending you flying. Because I always think like, oh, I'm going to die, but I never do, and that's a bit weird. Nothing big, obviously, but
it does seem like the stage before you die is a bit wider this game.
Yeah. And a few changes to my characters that I'm just not used to because I don't have the game myself. But they also tend to just do like Final Destination, no items, so that gets a bit tiring. I like crazy stages.
We play normally, whenever I set up arenas, I do low items because I don't want it to just be like running around gathering items to win the whole time, and we just put it on random. The dogs are grumpy today, apparently. Karkashan was saying that she uses Sheik and Zero Suit Samus 99% of the time in World of Light, so it's not just me whenever you play as one character. That's good to know. So what are you thinking about for your... we're down to the number 2 game of the year. What'd you bring along, Mr. Ryan?
Number 2 is Mega Man 11, I believe.
Okay.
I picked it up, and I'll admit I was in one of my moods, so I wasn't feeling it at first. I was crooked and cranky at just like other things. So when I played Mega Man 11, I again went in blind. I didn't know what order to do for the bosses, so I picked a few. I died because I found the stages were too long, and then so I was like grumbling, being like, "Oh, if the stages are so long, then why do they still have lives?" and blah blah blah. But I took a little break. I think maybe not. Yeah, a friend came over and I showed him the game, and I managed to beat one. And then they have a weird upgrade system where you can use screws to buy upgrades for Mega Man, like less knockback or more lives, more E-tanks, or increase how many E-tanks you can have. But some are unlocked on like a Saturday or Sunday, and some unlock if you die a certain amount of times. It's pretty weird. So I got the one where you get less knockback, and I just bought lots of lives. And then...
Wait, so I'm wrapping my head around this. There's power-ups that only work on a specific day of the week?
No, they work all the time. They just become unlocked in the store on a Saturday.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So, again, that
scared me.
A bit weird to do it, but, more power to you, Capcom, whatever. So, then, we all know what Mega Man's like. You beat a boss or two, you get their weapons, and then the rest just kind of fall in line.
Right.
What I liked about it, though, is that if you use a weakness on a boss, it doesn't like stun lock them and becomes a free fight. They still fight. So it's still like a good boss fight. It's just that you tend to do a bit more damage. The stages are longer than classic Mega Man is, but they're all really solid. They're so fun. So good. And there's like 2 or 3 checkpoints throughout the stages compared to the usual one in older games. And like, I really like the graphics in these ones. The colors just really pop and everything's so expressive. The Wily stages are great as well. My only 2 issues with it is, one, it's too short. I'm greedy. I want more. I'm used to like beating 8 Robot Masters and then doing a castle, and then, whoops, it's Dr. Wily. Do his castle now. Or more stages, because there's only 2 Dr. Wily stages. The last 2 are like the end game boss rush and then fight Dr. Wily. So in that regard, it's not as much as even like the first Mega Man, maybe. But again, what is there is so good, so well designed. It just makes me happy. Like Tomb Raider, I beat it and then I immediately beat it again. And the only other issue is the soundtrack for me.
What's wrong with that?
I don't think it's that well put together. Well, it's well constructed. I'm just not a big fan of the sound and instruments used.
Gotcha.
But again, it's not like terrible. It's just I'm spoiled again. I'm greedy. I want a Mega Man 2 tier town soundtrack. So, but other than that, it's so good to have Mega Man back. So,
see, I tried the demo on the Switch, and I was kind of mixed with the demo. Like, I didn't like the way the demo forced you to use a lot of the time altering aspects of it.
okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if that becomes less of an issue in the game, or if it was just I felt the demo was really hard for whenever you're trying to start out. Whenever, I grew up, most of my Mega Man gaming comes from like Mega Man X games.
Yeah.
I played the older ones that were, I guess, not as the movement was a little more limited. I think in the earlier Mega Man games, whereas
Yeah,
Mega Man X, you had a lot of movement freedom. And the Mega Man X stage was just such a nice little walkthrough and getting used to your characters. The demo is the exact opposite. It's like, you should know what you're doing. Get in there and fight. And, kicks you into a pit and you're in the gauntlet. That's the only thing. I really do need to go back and buy Mega Man 11. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, it is very old school
Mm-hmm.
Mega Man. Like, some people might even say it's like NES hard or arbitrarily difficult, but
right,
it's one of those things where it's Mega Man. Like, you will get knocked back into a pit occasionally, and you might fight a boss who seems impossible, so you have to come back to him and then redo the stage. So again, like, if you don't like Mega Man 11 is not going to be the epiphany. Like, it's Mega Man through and through. And at this point, like, everyone knows if they like Mega Man or not. So
gotcha. Well, my next game on the list for my number 2 is Jackbox Games.
Sorry to jump in.
What's that?
Sorry to jump in. Karkashan just posted there are difficulty modes in Mega Man 11, which I forgot. So there is an easier mode. There is a harder mode. But...
So Karkashan's saying there is a Pansy SimplyTravis mode just for me. Nice to know. All right. Because honestly, I work a high-stress job, and I don't want to come home and play old NES games anymore, apparently. I think that's the problem. I mean, I don't want it to be exactly like holding my hand walking through, but there are times whenever I'm just like, nope, I'm done. I'm going to come over here and play this other game that's just like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
I think that's, as I've gotten old and decrepit, that's how I end up being. But yeah, Jackbox Games has been my number 2 game of the year. And not just, though, the one that just released, because they just released a Jackbox Game 5. But it's just a really good game to get your family involved in. Like, I bring this to almost every single get-together with my Switch. Everybody breaks out their phones, and it's a really good time. Games like Quiplash, which essentially gives you a prompt, and then you have to put answers down, and everybody votes on what's the funniest or best answer. There are just a ton of different games. A big one that's been really fun has been rap battles on the new one, which basically it works a little bit like Mad Libs. It says, write down an adjective. And then it gives you a line with that adjective in it, and then you have to rhyme with it. You do that 2 times, and you have a rap battle. It can go downhill pretty quickly. Like, it's good with large groups of friends. What I mean by going downhill, I mean, when you play games like Quiplash and things where you have people putting in their own answers, it can kind of turn into a Cards of Humanity-like situation pretty quickly. So, you got to kind of watch out what you're saying around Grandma. But you don't want to give her a heart attack. But you also sometimes get a little concerned by what Grandma will say. Because Grandma might have been, might know some things you didn't want to know she knows. So it's a tricky game in that aspect. But there's a lot of fun ones. There's some drawing games, like to where you have to come up with T-shirt ideas in one of the Jackbox games, or you come up with products and you have to sell it to other people essentially, and they vote whether they put money into it. There is a game called Fibbage in Jackbox 4, and I think one of the earlier ones, to where you basically have to figure out which one of the answers are lies. And there's another game that just left me. One of my favorites to play with a group of people is Trivia Murder Party.
That was pretty fun too. Yeah,
you played that? Yeah.
Quiplash is my favorite because it's just quick and easy and funny. But yeah, Trivia Murder Party is pretty good too. Trivia
Murder Party. And if you don't know the premise of the game, it's basically you have been captured by a crazy psycho murderer guy. And he is making you have a fun trivia party to stay alive. It's a good time, and it's very funny, dark humor. If you miss a question, you turn into a ghost because he kills your little voodoo character-looking thing on the screen. But you can also play a little mini game to stay alive. To like whoever does the most math questions right lives, or there's one where it involves taking money, stabbing somebody, or doing nothing, and depending on what you choose, if everybody takes the money, then he kills everyone. It's a little weird. It sounds kind of scary, but it's really not. It's just kind of a funny game. And it sounds like you've played it with people. It's really good to play with a large group. So we've gone through 5 through 2 on our list. I wanted to hop in and do the most disappointing game of the year. And so Karkashan gave me her most disappointing and number 1 also. But Karkashan's most disappointing game this year was Monster Hunter World. And although she loves the game, she felt that the in-game grinding loop was boring and quickly stopped being fun. Not even the new free monsters that they added did enough to keep her interest more than a measly 10 or so extra hours. Compared to Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate and the over 40 hours she put into it after beating G-Rank story. So, I haven't played Monster Hunter World yet. Have you played it by any chance?
I remember Matt and Evil Twin and Juke, I think, tried to get me on Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate for Wii U, but I wasn't feeling it.
I ended up getting the Generations Ultimate on the Switch, and it's really good.
I am tempted to try Monster Hunter World, but again, I got distracted by other stuff. So I may go and try it one day. But,
did you play the older ones?
No, 3 Ultimate was my first and only one that I tried.
Gotcha. Yeah, World would, from what I understand, World would probably be a better one if you didn't really care for Ultimate that much. And honestly, I like Monster Hunter, but if you don't have a group of people you're playing with, it's a really hard game to solo play. It gets a little too grindy for my taste. So, what would be your most disappointing game this year?
I'm a bit hesitant to say because I'm afraid Karkashan will never talk to me again. But it's basically default because I only played 6 games that were released in 2018. So by default, my most disappointing, I guess, is number 6. That's Bloodstained: Curse of the Moon. Not a bad game. It's well made. It's just a little Kickstarter bonus for the main Bloodstained ritual of the night. But Karkashan actually gave me a code, and I played it once, and it took me, it's only 6 levels long, I think, but I still had to put it down after every level or 2. It just wasn't grabbing me. It just, I don't know, it felt like something was missing. And again, I know it was only a Kickstarter bonus game. So
Karkashan says she still hasn't even beaten it.
Okay, never mind then. But there's multiple
so you don't
endings.
Have to feel too bad.
Yeah, there's multiple endings and difficulty settings that changes things up. There's different routes and levels, and New Game Plus that you can carry your characters back to find secret routes in the first level. Or you can just kill all the bonus characters and gain this special power from them and play through that way. So replayability is off the charts, apparently. Because once I beat it once, I was like, cool. And then I just never really thought about it again. It was only until I looked through the list of games completed on the forums, I was like, oh yeah, that's the thing I played. So I'm still really excited for Ritual of the Night because I really hope that's good. But the Curse of the Moon, while nothing wrong with it, it was missing that je ne sais quoi, I don't know. I can't describe it any more than that.
Just didn't feel right. just
Yeah.
stalled. The game wasn't quite done well. So it looks like Clark's saying Ritual of the Night recently had WayForward come in to help them complete the game. Oh, so the company themselves they have good ideas, is what it's sounding like to me. And the execution of finishing it is that an issue with the game? It just doesn't feel like it's finished well.
Because I think Inti Creates are doing it, and they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But Karkshan's saying he felt it for bug testing, but it's pretty late in development. Like, it's been delayed a few times, and now they're getting WayForward's help. So
interesting.
It seems a bit weird, but I'm still going to give them benefit of the doubt here.
All right. Well, my most disappointing is one that is a good game, don't get me wrong, and I think that's kind of the same thing you've had. It's a good game, but it's really just not for me, is Mario Tennis. It's like other Mario Tennis games, except it's just ridiculously complex in regards to timing and the various slowdown modes and things like that in the game. I know Matavelli from Game Witness, he felt the same thing too, to where it's just a little too much. It almost feels like a simulator, but done in a fantasy world. And there is a way to do a simple mode in it, like more old school, but it just doesn't feel right. They've been adding characters to it. They fixed some things in the DLC, but really it required too precise of timings. When you go online, the people would just massacre you online, because only people playing online knew what they were doing, apparently. So it just wasn't the game for me. And the single player mode was straight up cheap. Like, the characters that you would fight against on the AI, even if you're like playing it pretty simply, they would just nail things so perfectly, and they'll shatter your rackets. They should not make it to where if your racket gets broken, you're done. Like, that's actually a game mechanic in Mario Tennis. If you break the other, it's nuts.
I played it at a friend's house for a couple rounds, and again, I thought it was like pick up and play Mario Tennis. But then he was busting out super moves, and then the game just ended. I was like, what happened? And he was like, I did this, and the racket broke. I was like, okay. Weird.
Yeah. That's just straight up dirty Mario Tennis right there.
Yeah.
It just wasn't my thing. I wish they'd go back and kind of... I know they have a simpler mode with it. There's even like there's a motion control mode. I tried playing that, and it was okay, but it's not well executed enough. And I don't know who the target audience for this Mario Tennis is, really, because there's not enough online options to make it competitive. And it's not really approachable enough for everybody to pick up. So it's just in this weird place. It's like they were trying to make a new Smash Brothers that was easy to play but competitive potential, and they just made it a little too complex. So that would be my most disappointing game of the year. The next one, I guess we are down to the number one game of the year. And it looks like Karkashan's number one game of the year was God of War for PS4. She said it is a great refinement of the core God of War gameplay loop, a great story, and most importantly, a wonderful beard. Make it Kark's favorite game of 2018. On a side note, I actually got into a fight with my beard trimmer. So my beard is now short. I'm sad.
I trimmed a beard too for the holidays. So
I lost like 4 inches of beard. It was really bad.
I thought you were going to say I lost 4 pounds of beard, but
that's a possibility. I didn't weigh it. I got this new scale for like weighing coffee. I should try that next time I cut my beard. So what was your number one game of the year?
My number one was a game called Dusk. It's to look at it, it looks like a 90s FPS game that they found at id Software. Low poly, it looks like Quake. It uses the wide color spectrum of brown and dirty brown, bit of light brown in there. But basically, it was so refreshing. It's comparable to Doom 2016. It just takes away a lot of modern mechanics. It's just, here's a level, hunt down key cards and find the exit. You can hold 10 weapons. You can dual wield your pistols and shotguns. It has a fast firing rocket launcher. Even the pistols, like when you fire the pistols, you get that sense of satisfaction of firing, like, yeah. Like, it's so good. The level design is fantastic. The music, it knows when to like pull back and honestly be kind of scary at times. But when you open that door and there's like a dozen monsters barreling down at you, then like the music kicks it up 10 notches and it gets the blood flowing. Very fast-paced, bunny hopping, rocket launcher, fun fest. Like, again, it's everything I like for a game. It's fun, it's challenging. There's no upgrade trees, there's no open world mechanics, no climbing radio towers, no loot boxes or microtransactions. It's just a simpler time of gaming, and they nailed it.
Nice.
For my top 5 list, you can kind of tell what kind of gamer I am. But so again, might be a bit biased this here, but in terms of just pure unadulterated fun, I don't think anything could top Dusk for me this year.
Oh man, I'm gonna be like on the exact opposite end of the spectrum for my number one. My game of the year is actually really complex to play. It's Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire. It is an Obsidian-made game, which Obsidian are the guys that did Fallout New Vegas and the original Fallouts. But they actually... Pillars of Eternity 2 is an isometric, like old-school CRPG, but with a lot of quality enhancements over time. It's pause-based, so instead of like doing a turn-based fighting method, it actually has like you hit a spell button and it does a timer down essentially, and then before you cast your next one. But after you cast your spell, you can set the system to auto pause, and you can attack or set your next attacks up and things like that. So it can be played really slow, or you can actually program in AI into all of your characters and tell them, like, if you get to this many health, then use a potion or things like that, and he'll do it all for you. But the storytelling and the writing in it has been some of the best that I've played in an RPG. One of the things that I like about it is the game will straight up kill you because of what you say to gods. So to give you an idea of what the game is about, you start from the last game where you were essentially trying to get the souls back into children in the first game, and the gods, you're working for the gods essentially. Well, this game, you're in your keep, Cadnua, and this gigantic hand comes up from the ground and basically kills you and everything in the keep and starts walking off. So you start the game dead as a spirit, and you are being brought back on the wheel of creation essentially by the god Barath. And I'm not a big, like, the way I played the last game, like, I was a big fan of one of the gods, like one of the nicer ones. So Barath is like almost like a god of war in a sense. And so I was being flippant with her and, basically telling her to shove off. And she turned me into a rat and I died. Like, it did a game over screen and I had to start a new character. Any game that will straight up kill you in the first 5 to 10 minutes, because of how you talk to a god, I think is pretty good in my for what I'm looking for in story.
So is that a thing that could happen like 20 hours into the game where you have to
And
start
it
a new
did.
character?
No, I didn't start a new character. I just loaded beforehand.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think of 3 or 4 gods killed me because I was being like, screw you guys, and flipping them off proverbially. So, but that's the thing. It plays like I'm a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, like playing with a group of people, good story. You have choice, and that's what this game gives you. There's lots of choices, and depending on what you choose, the people you align with, what you say can affect your followers, whether they'll stay with you or not, what they'll say to you, how the different factions in the games react to you, even to the point like I've played the game like 3. I have 3 characters in this game, right? Like I've started over just because I want to see where it takes me, because I do such a good job with the writing. It's like you're a choose your own adventure book of RPG is what it feels like to me.
Okay.
So I've got this character, and I imported a save from the first game because what you do in the first Pillars of Eternity actually affects you in the second one. Well, in the second one, I picked basically to where I had ticked off one of the gods, the god of nature, the goddess of nature. So my boat in the game for the entire game is constantly covered in bird poop because she has them following my boat around and making it gross all the time. So it's just kind of funny, the little things they put into the games. The characters are well written. The choices are sometimes ridiculous. There are expansions for the game that are already out that add, anywhere from 8 to 20 hours each expansion. But I'm playing an expansion right now to where I'm in the God of basically secrets. And the God of secrets is a giant tentacle monsters with eyes everywhere, which is apparently what God's secrets are. And I'm in its library. And there's a part in the library to where you're supposed to put a certain book on a totem. And it gives you the choice on one of the totems to lick it. So I had to lick it. It was tingly and it kind of electrocuted me a little bit, but it was worth it because I had the choice to do that. But it's a game I can't talk. I've talked a lot about. It's just really well done. You're basically trying to stop this. This large group of gods is trying to stop this other god from destroying the will of creation. So the whole reincarnation cycle is up for grabs, essentially, and it's your job to go and stop him. The ending is really well done. I'm not going to say what happens in it. And it pretty drastically different what can happen or who you side with affects things. So it's one of the best games. It feels like an epic. The writing is good enough to where you feel like you know these different civilizations by the end of it. There's lots of lore, and the lore is actually really well written. Whereas like in a Skyrim type game where you have books sitting around to read the lore of things, they actually reference it or actually use some of the lore that are in the books based on when you're talking to people or make you reenact it, essentially. So that's been the game of the year for me. I put like 200 hours into it already. And if you really like an old school Baldur's Gate style RPG or Neverwinter Nights, it's the game to play.
So how beginner friendly is this one? Because I love RPGs.
Oh man.
And like I also like some older games like System Shock and System Shock 2 that like don't hold your hand at all.
Okay.
But I've never really delved into CRPGs. So how welcoming would this be to me?
So it's actually compared to the first one, to me, this one feels easier just because some of the quality of life adjustments. Where in this game, for instance, wizards. in the last game, it's very like true to Dungeons and Dragons, to where you have a certain amount of spells you can cast, and then you have to take a rest before you can do more.
Okay.
This game doesn't have that same thing. This game has injuries, so it has a different injury system, to where if you get 3 major injuries, which means you like got knocked out in a fight, essentially, your character's permanently dead. So to rest in this game, you just have to have food, though. And it also allows you to have more what are called empower points, to where you can strengthen spells or get a refill on your mana or what you have. And the spell bucket, essentially, for your characters is per fight, you can use so many spells, and then after that fight, it refreshes. So it's a little bit easier in that way. I think with the games you were saying, like, I think it'd be pretty easy to get into. It's kind of tough to understand at first, but once you start clicking into it, it's really fun.
And is it one of those games where I should play the first one first? Like you said, the story carries over?
I would say the first one's so good. Like, the way you talk about some of the games that I've heard you talk today, I would say yes. If you like an old school kind of tough game with good writing, I would play the first one, which you can find fairly cheap. And then hop into the second one. But honestly, the second one's so good, and you don't need to. There's nothing in the first one that's majorly going to affect you in the second one if you don't know about it. But it does affect you because you import a save. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
So just knowing the way you play things, I would definitely say get the first one, play it, then move to the second one. But going to let you know that first one's going to be like a 60, 70-hour game.
Oh, that's fine. I got nothing but time on my hands, and I'll probably try and recreate my Dungeons and Dragons character. So.
So that's, I think, to me, is one of the best parts. Is the second one for sure has some of the best character creations in any game that's close to Dungeons and Dragons that I've played. Like, it's phenomenal. And there are some classes that you don't have in Dungeons and Dragons, like a Cypher is a big class in the game. Think like Professor X or Psylocke from Marvel.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what a Cypher is. It's like a psychic fighter, essentially. Those are good to play as. In the first game, you have 6 people in your party. In the second game, you have 5. So, yeah, I would say definitely grab the first one, because I had a lot of fun with the first one. I had a lot of fun with the second one. It's to the point to where I think Deadfire is probably my favorite game of all time.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's tough for me to say compared to some other games, but I've just enjoyed it so much. So, well, I think that's about it. Do you have any things you want to talk about that you're looking forward to next year, or?
Well, the first game I'm picking up is Kingdom Hearts 3.
Okay.
Because I've been waiting for 3 since high school. I gotta close this chapter of my life.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to Resident Evil 2, but Capcom announced a bit too much DLC for my liking, with like downloadable costumes and collector's editions and limited editions. So I might wait on that one.
Okay.
Sekiro Shadows Die Twice looks pretty good. And yeah, I think those are my 2 big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if Metroid Prime 4 comes out, or Bayonetta 3, but those are up in the air, so, you know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers from what I'm dying for next year.
Oh, right now I'm looking towards Outer Worlds, which is another Obsidian game.
That does look fun, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and they pretty much throw down the gauntlet with like what they did with Fallout 76. If you don't know what Outer Worlds is, for people listening, it's essentially a new Fallout-esque looking sci-fi game done by the people that made Fallout New Vegas and Deadfire, the one that I've been talking about. and it looks like you have a lot of choice. So I'm looking forward to that one. And another game that is an indie game by Chucklefish called Wargroove. Did you ever play Advanced Wars, Ryan?
Yeah, I played the first one, and I really loved it.
So Wargroove is basically like an indie Advance Wars, and you can actually create your own story modes. You can, I mean, there is a story mode in the game, mind you, but you can create your own story mode. You can make movies that kind of go along within the game. The art style is nice and hand drawn. And there should be online, make your own levels. It's going to be a lot of good stuff.
Well, I'll throw that one on the list.
Yeah, and it's coming out for Switch. It's coming out for pretty much everything. So, all right. Well,
right quick, I did forget Doom Eternal. That's the other big one. And Carcassonne saying Devil May Cry 5, which I also will have to agree on as well.
See, I never played Devil May Cry. I played Bayonetta's, but I have yet to play some DMC, so I'm going to have to try those out when they come out.
The first one is pretty janky. I will say that. Second one is...
Karks, yes, it's jank. Second
one isn't bad, but it's really like kind of monotonous. It's too easy. I don't like saying this, but they did dumb it down to the point where it's not even like engaging. Devil May Cry 3 though is like, yeah, that's when they got it right.
So that's when I need to start, is what you're telling me.
It is a prequel too, so you don't even need to play 1 or 2 to understand what's happening in 3, I don't think. But yeah, Devil May Cry 3 it's one of those games where you play for 10 seconds and you're like, oh yeah, I'm in for something special here. So,
and what Carcassonne's telling me it is, the first one is the dictionary definition of jank. So yeah, I think I'll start with the third. I'd imagine I can find it on PC or somewhere. All right.
It is on Steam, I think. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm not sure how it is because it's a Capcom PC port, so I might have to want to look into it, but it is on Steam.
Awesome. Well, I want to go ahead and say thank you, Carcassonne, for getting this together and, kind of getting the idea out. Thanks, Ryan, for coming in and talking some games. It was nice to hear a different perspective, and as far as on more indie style games, and I guess you'd say pure games in my estimation, because now I have some things like I want to go play, like really bad. And
well, again, I'm limited because my laptop's not beefy and I don't have a Switch, so I'm still kind of limited in what I can do. So
gotcha.
Yeah, this year was an indie backlog year for me mostly.
And you might have to send me like your specs on your laptop, because you probably could play Pillars of Eternity 1 on it, by the way.
I probably could, yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank y'all for joining in, and I guess I will see y'all the next time that we do one of these Game Witness podcasts. Thank y'all for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right.